Hey, you guys. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another episode of this Piscean Reports. How's everybody doing? I'm hoping you guys are having a fabulous day as always. For those of you new to my channel, welcome aboard. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. I wish to God I could put this message on another channel, and I created another channel and I put videos on there, but they don't even get seen. And I know this channel does. So unfortunately, I have to take a video that is not tarot related and put it on here. So I'm sorry, you guys. So those of you looking for tarot, you can go ahead and go now. Okay. This message is going to be for my people, my beautiful people, my loving people. I said some things yesterday in privacy, in the privacy of my home. I said some things and I went to bed and I woke up this morning, and I believe in synchronicity. I do. And as I was scrolling through my feed on my phone, I saw something that simply said, say it. Like, say it, And I said, like I said, I believe in synchronicities. And I saw that. And I said, I felt like that's the universe saying, listen, say it. You got something to say it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So you guys, those of you who were watching when you shouldn't have been watching, this is pretty much that. So you can get up and leave, okay? And then I'll just make this video for anyone who's decent and decided to see this for the first time, okay? Now, summer, you guys, summer is coming. It's right around the corner. And I was thinking about us as a people, I was thinking about how we are appearing, how we are showing up in the world, how we are being represented in the world. And one of the terms I used yesterday was we are looking as a collective group, because it would be so great if not everyone saw our people as one collective group. There's a section of us, a subsection, that chooses to behave in this way. And the term that came to mind yesterday was feral. Okay. And I said out loud, I said, aren't you tired of being seen as the feral race? And for anyone who doesn't know what feral means, I had to jot it down to the side. It's the term feral, not pharaoh, feral, okay, is described as one of the meanings as intense, uncontrolled, or aggressive behavior. And one of the things I started the conversation with this. We as a people, we want to be seen. We want to be respected so badly. We really do. And you'll see people who will go on and act like they say they don't give a F and they don't care and this and that and the whole nine. But you do care. You do care. There are people or in my race who feel like they, you see all the time on YouTube videos where they say they hate white people. And clearly you don't. You couldn't, because it's impossible to sit up and say you hate white people, but 90% of the women in my culture have straight hair. Right? We go out of our way to make sure that we have straight hair, straight weave, pressing, relaxing our hair, straightening our hair, the whole nine. And some of them go so far as to wear those blonde weaves, blonde wigs, and even have blue eyes. I've seen people who literally go, it was a thing over the internet that there are people who go so far as to change the color of their eyes. They're not even happy with their eye color. So they're going out here in these blonde wigs and this blue eyes, but you're sitting up here and you're saying you hate white people. And clearly you don't. Okay? We sit up here and, we are... Like I said, we are behaving. There are some of us, not all of us. And it's unfortunate because you are judged by what you see the most online. And when you see all of these videos of us behaving in this feral fashion, in Detroit, they were running through the streets, there's videos out of us running into stores in groups, in packs, like animals, pretty much like animals, running into stores and snatching and grabbing things and running out of the store like animals, right? You sit up here and you say, well, you want all this respect, but you're not behaving in a respectable manner. We do not all of us, but there are some who do come off as being extremely aggressive, loud, argumentative, wanting to fight all the time, when you see videos of people, let's say you ordered something in a McDonald's drive-thru and the order didn't come right, and you see the videos of them coming into the store yelling at the help, the workers and I want my money and I want this and give me this and give me that, and you're throwing the food and knocking things over everywhere, being just the behaviors is unreal, I saw, I had to write this down. I saw a Hodge twin video just yesterday where there was this young lady who, the title of the video said that people can't pronounce her name. They can't pronounce this young lady's name. And so they played a video and this young lady sits up there and, Black Americans do tend to come up with these names that are very difficult to pronounce, And so this young lady went to the doctor's office and she, the young lady didn't know how to say her name. She knew how to say her last name, but she couldn't pronounce her first name. And so the young lady said, I'm just going to call you by your last name because it'll be easier for me. And she said, you got called in. She got called into another section. And she took offense to the fact that the young lady couldn't say her first name, and so she gets to the next one and she's already in a combative mode right now, just from that. And she, at any point she could have said, when that lady said, I don't know how to say your first name, so I'll just call you by your last name. It'll just be easier. At that point, that young lady could have said, let me tell you it's this, and just tell her the name, but she didn't do it. She was combative. She was already mad. So when she got to the next one, the lady was desperately trying to see how to say her name. She's looking at the paper and she does it and she's struggling, and so she says, she basically asked her if she could tell her name. This young lady said, no, sound it out. I'm not telling you my name. Sound it out. Do it. Because she was like, strike one. You didn't know how to say my name. Strike two. You're asking me to say my name. Here's the deal. When I was coming up, having the name of Chiquita, okay, you can only imagine. I went to predominantly white schools growing up, and there were many times where I would have a teacher say, look at my name, and I've had teachers, say, I don't know how to say your first name, but your last name is Miller. Can you say your name? And then I would stand up and I would say, oh, it's Chiquita. And then she would say, oh, like the banana. And I would go, yeah, and we would laugh and keep it light, and that's what that young lady could have did. When she asked her to say her name, she could have said, oh, that's no problem. I get that all the time. My name is. But she chose the combative route. And this is what I'm talking about. Not every single situation needs to be combative. But here we are. We're aggressive, you know. No, I'm not going to say my name. You say my name, and you should be, and you should have, and da 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 da. And it's all of that is completely unnecessary. It is completely unnecessary. Okay, I worked in a grocery store and I with my name tag, and I can't tell you how many times people would look at my tag back then, because Chiquita was not a common name, clearly. And they would say, how do you say your name? And then I would say, oh, it's Chiquita. And they would go, oh, wow. You know, some people would say, that's different. That's unique. That's really pretty. And I would say, thank you, you know. And that's all that young lady could have did. You know, she took an opportunity to show grace, to show how to an opportunity to be polite, to be gracious, to be kind, and say, oh, that's okay, I get that all the time, my name is. And then she could have said, oh, okay, and then that would have been just what that nurse needed to hear. So when she looks at that name, she can now mentally process that when she sees someone with a name similar to that again, she will have a jumping board where she can say, oh, okay, it's pronounced like this, in case she ever sees someone else, and she can file that away mentally. But this young lady chose to be, you know, combative and aggressive. And this is what I'm talking about, the tiniest little things. Okay, we want to be respected, but we behave in such a way that is so negative. Why do we have to be negative all the time, you know? I saw the video on Anton Daniels' channel where there was a young lady, you know, where it said Mexicans are racist against blacks, you know. And I said, why is that even a thing? Like, why did that even need to be a video? You know, because if we're completely honest, no, Mexicans are not fans. Maybe they are racist, you know, or certainly not fans, but you see video all the time of people blacks going into Mexican restaurants, and they'll eat the food, and then they'll say, well, I didn't like it, and I want my money back, and I want this, and give me that, and they tearing up the restaurant when they don't get the answer that, well, you ate the food, ma'am. You ate the food. Okay, you cannot have your money back. And their response to that is to trash the store. Like, this is what I mean. We behave in such a nasty, ugly way. And it's not all of us, but it is the few, you know, that do these things, and it shines, it reflects on all of us as a people. You know, when there's all this video of black Americans going on a cruise, and they're fighting and throwing chairs, and you know, someone had a chair and they got up and they went to go do something, and so this person sat there and they came back and they were like, excuse me, I was sitting there, and they were like, so, and being very mean and playing all this loud music, and like, we don't know how to conduct ourselves in any setting. Okay, this is what I mean when I say we are coming across as a very feral race. Okay, we know how to act. And if you don't know how to act, there are people who feel like they can take the behavior that, you know, let's say you grew up in a bad, quote unquote, bad neighborhood, and I feel like this, you know, we don't have to have bad neighborhoods. Just because what you have isn't the best of the best doesn't mean that we have to behave so ugly and so nasty. But we choose it. You know. But anyway, because you grew up in a quote unquote bad neighborhood is no reason for you to take that behavior and then apply it in every space that you go into. You know, you go into a restaurant and you guys are in there being loud and fighting, you know, over a ticket, and then, you know, Waffle Houses where they're tearing up the restaurant, you know, and fighting, and cops have to come, you know. There's video of that just not too long ago where the beauty supply opened up, and here we are on video, you know, hordes of black American women, you know, behaving in such a way, you know, acting like they can't just stand in line. We're in line. Let's get in line and wait our turn and be served. And it's impossible for us to do that. You're cutting in front of me and we're gonna fight and we're arguing and they wanna, all of this ridiculousness over weave because they were giving away free weave, and to behave in such a way that once again we want the respect, but we don't behave in a respectable manner. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind how I don't know if we just don't see ourselves or we do see ourselves, but we want to ignore it. Don't nobody talk about the ugly that is existing in our culture, but it doesn't have to be that. If you want respect, maybe it's time that we start behaving in a respectable way. Fighting on cruise ships and just the whole nine, fighting in restaurants and, taking, I understand that I was talking about yesterday about Ruth Chris. I have never been in a restaurant. I've never been to a Ruth Chris, Chris's, whatever. And I hear it's a very nice restaurant, but they were saying that blacks have turned it quote unquote ghetto, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Why does it always have to be us that could take something so beautiful and so positive and just turn it completely to trash? You were blessed enough with an opportunity to have a cruise that lowered their prices so that everyone can enjoy, the cruise ship experience. And you turn it into this ghetto, trashy, nasty thing. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It got to the point where the cruise ship, and they didn't had to create rules. We now have to, God help us, they tried to make it to where it's affordable for every walk of life to enjoy the cruise ship experience. But we had to turn it into something so nasty and so trashy. And so, leaving food, trays and hordes of food outside the stateroom. You know what I mean? It's the list went on and on and on. You can look at any video and they talked about how we as a people conduct ourselves when we are, in a fantastic setting. We have the opportunity to enjoy something so great and we turn it into something so nasty. You take a nice restaurant and then you turn it into something where people refer to this restaurant chain now as ghetto and people now avoid it, which was once something really nice. And it's insane. It's insane because it's just us, and it's time that we started really taking a step back and taking a look at who we are. If we want to be respected, we've got to behave in a more respectable manner. If you want to, you want to leave the streets for the streets, we're going to go to a restaurant. Let's all go. We're going to have a nice time. And we're not going to fight over the check. We're going to go, we're going to have pleasant conversation, we're going to enjoy ourselves. And then y'all know the thing now is a lot of people say black people don't tip. If you can't afford to tip, don't go to the restaurant. I can't afford that, babe, but great. Let's go to the grocery store. We'll get something really nice. We'll put something together. We'll have a nice little thing for ourselves. If you can't afford the restaurant experience. And then there's that whole thing where that's a whole nother subject where we as a people feel like, you got to have thousands of dollars if you're going to date me. And why? Because you have weave in your hair and nails and, you're dressed a certain way. You're now all of a sudden entitled. You're able to demand that people spend hundreds of dollars on you. If you're going to go out with me, you're going to... I saw a video where a woman said that, you got to spend, $500, hundreds of dollars to take me and my kids out to a nice restaurant and spend all of this money instead of you see what I'm saying? Just our mindset is just, oh my God. Oh my God, we can't, we're proving to the world that we can't even get together in family events, going to the park and having a, family reunion or a family get together. We have the music going and it's a good time. And at some point it turns into gunplay. Anytime we get together, we have proven to the world that anytime we're going to get together as a group, it's going to end in a fight, it's going to end in gunplay, it's going to end in theft. You want respect, but you don't want to behave in a respectable way. I think it's time that we really took a step back and really saw ourselves, acknowledge that, yeah, we do these things, Let's not be the feral race anymore. It's time that we started proving to the world that we know how to go somewhere and conduct ourselves. We know how to go to the park. We know how to go. We can go to a funeral and it not end in a shooting. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. It's insane. People look at us as the problem race. Who wants that? I don't want that. I hate it. Every time I see one of our people behaving in such a way, I cringe. I'm sick because I know everybody is going to look at all of us in that way. And I hate that. A lot of Black Americans really do hate that. It's not fair. But when that's all you see is us stealing at Walmart, video after video. I talked about a young man who has a channel solely based on us. Every day you will see a video where this, black ratchet, ghetto woman is doing this. We're constantly being combative with police. We've proven that we don't respect authority. We're the ones who are disrupting the classrooms. You don't see any other races doing that. It's always us. Always. We're the ones who want to pull out the phones. We're the ones when they tell you need to put the phone away. You want to stand up and curse the teacher out and do this whole thing. And you're not going to do anything because my mama's going to come in here and the parents, when they say, okay, let's test that theory, and they let the parents know that your child is coming in and they're bringing their phone and they're being loud and they're fighting us. And we're trying to teach a class, we're trying to teach, and the parents' response is to stand up for the child, not to discipline them, which is what they needed. We dive in and we defend the child, and that's crazy. That's crazy, because when we were coming up, I wish you would act up in class. Oh my God, there are so many people in Gen X generation and baby boomer generation. I wish you would try to act up in class. Don't let a letter come home or a note come home saying you did anything. You got your ass beat. And it would be a succession of beatings. First, the teacher would beat your ass and send a note home. And then your parent would beat your ass. And, your mom, and then they would send you over to dad, or the dad would get you and send you over to mom. It just didn't happen. It didn't happen. And that's what I'm saying. We've got to turn this thing around. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about before I go is the DEI, which anybody who don't know, because I had to look it up. I heard about it, but I never knew what it was. I never had to ever in my life even experience that whole DEI situation. But anyway, and it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a lot of companies are starting to do away with that. And once again, you see a lot of videos online of all, blacks saying that, companies, white companies are letting go of all the black women, or they're letting go of all the blacks, and you'll see the video picture in the caption, and here's all these black women, and they're yelling like this, and they're looking like, they'll show them being combative, and you see the white man, and he's and I wanted to comment on that as well. I think, first of all, I felt like whatever. I suppose maybe once upon a time it was needed, okay? But here's the bottom line. Since then, where it was a situation where they felt where the government said, okay, let's even the playing field a little bit, and let's start hiring more, and these more blacks, and in a lot of areas, in a lot of jobs. Okay, the truth is the truth. Okay, and a lot of jobs, these black people took advantage of that. I see, so many videos of young black people saying, they fired me because I wore my bonnet to work, or they fired me because I was 15 minutes late. They used to accept it all the time. Now all of a sudden they're firing me. You see what I'm saying? Do you not see the ridiculousness in that whole thing? They fired me because I was 15 minutes late. I'm always 15 minutes late. They never fired me before. That's the problem. That's ridiculous. That every other race is showing up on time and coming to work, and they're doing their job, and you feel like you should be allowed to be 15 minutes late all the time, or a half hour late, or, well, I had to get my kids to school, or this, that, and the other thing. And for that young lady, for people to be saying they got fired because they wore a bonnet, now that DEI has been removed, and now people can say, you know what, I don't want that. I never wanted that. When I hired you, you didn't have that on. But now that you got the job, you feel like it's perfectly fine to show up. And God forbid you should be in a job where you're the face of the company. If you're whether you're in a restaurant like a McDonald's, or I will give my job as an example. I work at a clothing store, and imagine being the checkout, the checker, or even at a grocery store, and here you are with a bonnet on and checking people out like that's crazy. Who does that? I heard somebody say, well, I was having a bad hair day, so I wore my bonnet. If you having a bad hair day, don't come to work. It's really that simple. You having a bad hair day, call off. Okay, that's crazy to show up in a bonnet. That it looks, the whole, just the concept of seeing someone with a bonnet on their head says, you almost get the feeling that they couldn't have bathed because they didn't think enough to do their hair. Did they wash their face? Did they brush their teeth? Did they take a shower before did they just wake up and put their clothes on and walk into the store? Because that's what the bonnet represents. Unfinished. I'm not finished. I'm not prepared to go to work yet. I'm not prepped. I'm not ready to face the customers. I couldn't even finish my hair. So if it's that, call off. Okay, these people have a right. These companies have an expectation. Okay, they know exactly what they want their employees to look like. Okay, they have an expectation, and if you can't meet that expectation, they have every right to fire you. You have no reason to be mad. I was consistently late for 15 minutes. There's the reason. Okay, let that be your lesson. Instead of going online and bitching and moaning about it, where they used to always let me do that. Well, we're not doing that anymore. Okay, times have changed. Okay, they've removed the the safety net. They took away that thing that allowed you guys to get away with what you get away with, and now the companies can say, I never did like that. I don't want that. I talked about a young lady that I saw at Chick-fil-A where I live at, and I walked in, and it was a young black girl. And this little sweetheart was as sweet as can be. Her hair is done. She's got this sweet little face, and she was very professional from hello, how are you? Welcome to Chick-fil-A. Can I take your order? And I was like, oh my God. And I said, yes, ma'am, I would like. And then she was saying, and she repeated the order back. Okay, you would like this, and it's this, and this, and this, and is there anything else we could do for you? Her whole tone was very kind and very welcoming. When she said, welcome to Chick-fil-A, she didn't say, welcome to Chick-fil-A, can I take your order? She said, welcome to Chick-fil-A, can I take your order? Very kind, very professional, very sweet. And as she was talking in my head, I said to myself, I see why they hired you. I see why they hired you. You're perfect. You're perfect. You're beautiful. You're professional. You're articulate. You are everything that anyone would expect and want. So for people to sit up here and say they're not hiring black people, yes, they are. They are. But they have an expectation now. Okay, gone are the days when you can just show up in anything where they had to hire you. They don't have to do that no more. They now have an expectation of what they're looking for and what they're wanting. If you can't meet it, they will find someone else who will. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're not wrong. Companies have an expectation of what they're looking for, and they should do that. And here's the thing, we as a people need to start showing up in the world and giving 1,000%. When you go to work, give 1,000%. If you don't like the job, then move on. Because I was telling them, I don't make a lot of money at my job. I don't make a lot of money. I don't get a lot of hours, the whole nine. But I understand this. I understand that they have an expectation. When you go to work, they have an expectation. This is what we're needing from you. This is what we need you to do. And I had a situation where I had to tackle something, and I had to tackle it by myself, and it was a lot. And I said, you know what? But they hired me because they knew I could do it, or you know what I mean. I'm on the schedule. Let's say that I'm on the schedule because they said she can do it. She will do it, and she won't bitch about it. She won't complain, and she won't, they giving me too much, and I don't want to do this, and I was hired to do that, and this and that. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. If you don't like what you're doing, then quit. It's really that simple. Or if they fire you, don't be mad. If you sat up there and you're the one, if you are the one at the company who is always complaining, okay, that brings the morale down for the company. The employees, the other employees. Maybe they hired people that they thought they liked their attitude and they liked their work ethic, and they got them. And then here comes someone coming in and they're constantly bitching about this and that. I didn't want to have to do that, and I don't know why you got me doing that. Why can't somebody else do that? And this, and I don't want, and this, that. That's fine. And don't get mad when they replace you for somebody else. I have a work ethic. Be proud of what you do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. There's nothing wrong with going above and beyond a little bit. That's what keeps you on the payroll. That's what keeps you, paid. It's really that simple. So this is what I want to say, you guys. It's time. It's time. This summer, I want this summer to be that summer where everything changes, where us as a people prove to the world that we're better than what we've been. Okay, we're done. We're done with what we were doing before. Let's be those ones who show up at work on time and who give 1,000%. Let's be those ones who come into a restaurant and we're not fighting and we're not loud and we're not combative. If we've got a problem, let's be the ones who come in and say, I'm sorry, this isn't what I ordered. Can I get? And they can say, I'm so sorry. We're apologizing. We're sorry. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. Give them the opportunity to correct it. Okay, we're sorry. Give us a second and we'll take care of that for you. Allow them the opportunity to, make the correction, give it to you. Thank you. I'm so sorry. You guys have a great day. Okay, thanks. You too. Not everything needs to be a fight. You know, you don't need, I want you to sound my name out and this and that thing. Show them how amazing you are. Oh, that's okay. I get that all the time. My name is. So they can say, oh, okay, well, I like that. For all you know, if that young lady had just said, that's okay, I get it. I get it. My name is. And then they can say, oh, okay, well, that's pretty. And 9 times out of 10, she probably would have said that. Oh, that's a pretty name. That's really nice. And you could say, thank you. And they say, okay, well, have a seat and then we'll take care of you, And when the next one comes in and they say, I get it. I just said it to the other one. This is my name. And they go, okay, well, so-and-so, let's get your blood pressure, or let's do this, or let's do that. Hold on a sec, you guys. Sorry, a plane was going by. Let's be better. Let's be better. Let this be that summer where everything changes. Let this be the summer where from this point forward, people are excited to see us come. It's terrible when you, because of someone else's poor behavior, the rest of us cannot walk into a situation without them cringing. Oh my God, here they come. Oh, here we go. You know what I mean? And not let everything be about race. If somebody says no to you, well, it's because you're racist. No, not everything is that. Maybe you're just wrong. Maybe they just don't have it. Maybe you are being loud, or you are being ignorant, and they want you to leave because they don't want that energy. They don't want that vibe in that bar, in that club, in that whatever. We want to keep it light and happy and friendly. We want a good time. We want everybody to enjoy themselves. We don't want everything to end up in a brawl or a fight or jail time. Or if you, let's not be the ones who are constantly on the video. This young man can literally show a video every single day. Every single day. And not one of them is the exact same video. He's been on for a good little minute. And it's really a sad state of affairs when someone can literally pull up video of us as a people stealing, and then we get caught stealing, and then we're fighting the police, and then we're running from the police, and then the whole nine. It just becomes this thing. Or you get stopped and you get pulled over because you ran a stoplight, and I didn't do that, and roll down your window and give us your license. You don't have it, and I'm not giving you nothing, and I'm not doing this. Okay, man, we need you to step out of the car. I'm not stepping out of the car, and just turning everything into something that just don't need to be. Can we let this summer be the summer where everything changes? Everything changes. We're no longer considered the feral race. We are that race that everybody can be like, oh my God, oh my God, they're amazing, so-and-so is a great worker. So-and-so, we can now walk into a place and they not worry that we're gonna, tear the place up because we couldn't get what we wanted. Let this be the year, the summer where everything changes as a people. It's time. It's time. Nobody wants to be that one. I don't like being the problem race. And if you are unhappy with the situation with the DEI, you absolutely can get a job. But look at yourself, dig yourself before you go in, be mindful. I saw a video where they said people are actually going to interviews in a bonnet, or they're going into interviews with short shorts on, or flip-flops and the whole nine, or their pants sagging and the whole nine. Let's show that we have respect for the company. Respect the company. You want a job, respect us. Show us you want the job. Come in, be presentable, be polite, be professional. Show them that that you're exactly what they're looking for. And then when you get the job, be that. Don't disappoint them. and go, wow, when we hired you, we thought you were going to be, and you're always late, and you're fighting, or you're mad, or you're complaining all the time, or let's turn it around. We're the ones who show up on work on time. We're the ones who show up and do the job to the best of our abilities. We're the ones who they look at and they say, I'm so glad I hired that one. That one, we're always going to keep on the schedule, because they always show up. They're always on time. They're always prompt. They're always dressed professionally. They are kind to our customers. They've given us, they didn't disappoint us. They didn't disappoint. Let's be that race that doesn't disappoint. Okay? Let's not be the ones running in the store doing all the stealing. Running in like packs of animals, running in and taking stuff and then running out. We're better than that. It's time we started showing people, you want the respect, be respectable, act in a respectable manner. You can't behave like that and then expect people to respect you. As a people, something's got to change. You want the respect? Change. See yourself. See your behavior. Not everything has to be that, Let's see, is there anything else? Nope, that's it. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Let this be the summer where everything changes for the better. Let us be the race that's to be proud of, that's to be respected, that's to be looked at and admired. Boy, they really got their ish together. They got it going on over there. They're all things. We can be that, but you gotta want to be it. Okay, it's not about kissing ass. It's not about sucking up. It's none of those things. It's just showing up in the world, be in a better way, and walking in the light, being that example, being the one. I would rather want people to say, that's the one, than, oh my God, here they come. I want people to welcome us on cruises. Oh my God, I went on a cruise with my friend and we had the best time and it was great, and we didn't, we were on our best behavior. We were fabulous and we had a fabulous time. We can do that. It can be done, but it takes you wanting to do it. Okay, I think that's the video, and I know everybody's whatever. I don't care. Say whatever you want to say. Sometimes some shit just needs to be said. It really does. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go. Hope you liked it. You guys, everything I'm saying out of love. Say it out of love. I'm not attacking. You're going to take it as attack. This isn't an attack. This is just, let's talk. Let's talk. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk about it. And then take the video and talk amongst yourselves. We do need to turn this around. We do need that. We don't always have to be the bad neighborhood just because there's a bunch of us. It doesn't have to be that. We can police our own neighborhoods. We could keep our neighborhoods clean. We could keep our houses up. It doesn't have to, being black doesn't always have to equate with a trashy neighborhood or trashy behaviors or none of that. Okay? All right, I'm gonna go. I believe it or not, I love you guys. I really do. I do. All right, I'm gonna go. Y'all have a great day. I will see you next time on the next video. You guys take care. Bye.